It's the week of March 29th, 2026, and we're going to talk about 5 things today. Number 1 is this theme, this energy of strength through surrender, with 2 big transits we have this week. Illuminating insights with 2 other transits, including the full moon. We'll talk about the auspicious activities to do this week and the inauspicious activities, the things to watch out for, and then practices and how you can integrate this into your life through embodied practices. Because astrology becomes much more applicable and useful in life when we actually do something with it outside of the horoscopes. But here's where we get the big picture energy. I'm Jeremy Devins. This is the Quietmind Astrology Podcast. And everything here is based on 20 years in astrology and thousands of case studies. And if you want to go into practices to work with this, check out New Moon Alignment at quietmindastrology.com/new moon. And you can join the waitlist for the next time we open up. And that's where I share all the practices to work with this energy. The first energy this week is this theme of strength through surrender, which usually doesn't sound like a strong stance to surrender. So let's examine this a little more. So we have the sun in Revati Nakshatra in the sign of Pisces. This is the last Nakshatra of the zodiac. And this is a sense of culmination and completion of energies around the sun qualities, your confidence, your self-esteem, your sense of self. You're coming to a culmination energy, getting to more intuitive insights. Time to transmute something as we go through the Gandanta zone later on in a couple weeks. This will be when Sun passes into Aries, and we have a big breakthrough in this area of our confidence, our intuition, our self-esteem in mid-April. This is a place of endings, surrender, and transition. So your confidence, your self-esteem, your sense of vitality and power may be going through a place where it's time to let down your control a little bit, let down your ego a little bit. This is one of the big themes of this week in many ways, but it's a transitional energy. And you might feel more sensitive than usual. Pisces is a very sensitive sign, Revati as well. Revati also has a lot of wisdom. So there's a wisdom in sensitivity. Like if you think about the pain receptors in the body, like if you have a injury or something and somebody touches that injury and you feel pain, the pain has a wisdom to it that's protecting us. People who don't have pain receptors, there's a rare genetic issue where people don't feel pain so much, they're way more likely to get injured because that pain is saying, pay attention. And that sensitivity on an emotional, energetic level, that discomfort or pain or sensitivity could be saying, pay attention somewhere that needs attention so that you don't hurt yourself. And check in with yourself emotionally where this sensitivity is arising this week that's helping you avoid injuring yourself emotionally, energetic, spiritually, physically as well. You may be called to more rest, reflection, and even withdrawing energy. So this is a time very good for things like restorative yoga, yin, nidra, meditation, time in nature, reflective journaling practices, things like that. And it may be, again, like surrendering is withdrawing. It's like waving the white flag. It's saying, okay, I know when to quit. Or like in martial arts, you submit, it's like, you know when to stop. Or if you're playing a game and you know that you're going to lose, like you stop playing, you stop fighting for it. So the ego likes to control and be fixated on having a certain outcome. But the Revati Pisces energy is about letting go and trusting that it's okay. It's just in the big picture, it's just a cycle. And the ego wants to control and be safe and secure and find safety through control and form and structure. But that ultimately is all going to go away. We're all going to pass away at some point. So the more we can let go of that need to control and create a little more space for ourselves, the more strength we can actually find through surrender this week. Not a week for forcing outcomes. So if you really need it to be your way and things are not going your way, you're going to suffer a lot more with these energies, and it's going to make things harder and more prolonged than they need to be. So the strength doesn't come through more control, force, and effort. Strength comes through surrender. If things are unclear for you, you're not meant to act yet. And have the patience to wait. Let the things settle. And when it is the time to act, you'll know. And it's very clear. It's like, it's kind of crass, but you don't go to the bathroom until you need to go. Like you don't just sit on the toilet waiting. You go when you need to go, and it's time to act. And it's kind of like that with these kind of things. So if it's not clear and you don't need to go to the bathroom metaphorically, then just wait till you do. And the action will become clear when it's very obvious. Or another way you could say is when you're hungry. You don't need to eat when you're not hungry, but when you're hungry, it's time to eat. And you get the clear signal, it's time to go. When you don't have a clear signal yet, no rush, and you can wait. Sometimes there's external forces pressuring you, but if it's possible to wait until the clear signal is there, this is favorable use of this energy. And along the same theme is Mars and Pisces right now this week, and this is about a more fluid energy, being a bit more emotional in your movements through life and a little bit less direct, more intuitive. You can feel a little bit low in motivation and even some avoidance energy with this. Mars wants to take action. Pisces wants to be more in the feelings and in the present and the intuition. So these can be conflicting energies, but they actually can work together quite well when we are using our intuition to take action. So again, the same sort of thing with the sun of like waiting until the inspired action arises rather than forcing outcomes. When it's used well, this can be a very deep, creative flow, especially anything physical. Like if you're a dancer or artist, or somehow using your body in a creative way, this very powerful use of the energy this week. And spiritual practices are very favorable, like any sort of yoga practice. But again, with the Pisces and the sun in Pisces, especially the more gentle, restorative kind of practices. So Mars is going to go into Aries next month, and that's about picking up your weapon, going into action. Mars and Pisces is more about putting down the weapon and taking more inspired, intuitive action. So tuning into the waves and the flow of life and acting from that place, which can be very powerful. So it's not a weak energy. And even though, again, I'm talking about strength through surrender, it's like also another example is like when you're in the ocean and the waves are really strong. If you try to be strong and fight them, you're way more likely to get injured and the waves will take you. There's a need when you're in the ocean and the waves are strong to sort of surrender and not fight it. And then you can kind of ride the waves. It's a bit like that with Mars and Pisces. And this can bring more compassion for yourself, softness in relational issues as well. You don't need to push harder this week. It's more about allowing, moving with awareness, strength through surrender. That's the first theme of this week. The second one is illuminating insights with Mercury and Purva Bhadrapada in Pisces. This week, your mind is going deeper than usual, and big existential questions and big realizations can arise this week. You might be seeing patterns that were previously hidden. Now they are illuminated. You want to be aware of overthinking and emotional spirals. Careful what stories you attach meaning to. So we're meaning making machines as humans because meaning helps us understand, and it's a big part of the limbic system and our prefrontal cortex is we make stories to learn lessons and transmit ideas. So with Mercury and Purva Bhadrapada, the legs of the funeral cot, which can represent death, letting go, also can be fear of loss, fear of letting go. And all this Pisces energy this week, it's like important to find strength and surrender. But we might not be surrendering, we might be making stories of fears of what things mean for us. And that's where we can get kind of caught up into mental loops, overthinking, emotional spirals. The intellect, Mercury, is debilitated in Pisces, and we might not be thinking so clearly at this time. It may be helpful to have some perspective, have time in intuitive practices, meditation, journaling, talking with somebody to find a new perspective and find a meaning that is most useful to you. Like, if we're going to be meaning making machines as humans and we can create meaning from anything, might as well be that we choose the most empowering meaning of something. So, for example, like I grew up in a very difficult childhood, and I could make that mean that, I don't have a chance to succeed in life and all these negative victimhood stories. Or I can make that mean that it taught me more resilience and perseverance and fortitude to overcome adversity. And that meaning is more powerful and empowering. So I choose that one. Whereas the other one could also be true, but it doesn't feel empowering or helpful when I focus on it and I act from that. So that's part of the lesson of Mercury and Purva Bhadrapada is what lesson, what meaning have you ascribed to what situation is happening in your life this week? And it may be fully, completely true that the victimhood story is the reality. And it may be completely debilitating to focus on that. So just notice what meaning you're giving and how it feels to give that meaning and explore what meaning might be the most empowering for you. Not every insight that you have this week needs a decision right now. With the surrendering energy going on, it's more like riding the waves of life. But there can be some really powerful insights because of this transit, as well as the full moon in Hasta, which is opposite of this, and in Virgo. And this is the most practical and grounding influence this week. Virgo is about details and grounding, and Hasta, the hand, represents what we grasp. You may be grasping new ideas, and the full moon illuminates things which are in the dark, like the moon. Also, it brings more light into the nighttime, and more animals are out hunting. There tends to be more accidents. There's more of an unhinged energy around the full moon in general, more hospital visits. But in Virgo, it's grounded a bit more, so it's a little less intense. And it's bringing to light where we need to have a more clear grasp of things. This is bringing to light where we need to take more control in our lives through small intentional actions, but also where we may be controlling and need to surrender control. That is a big theme this week, illuminating the energy of control in your life. So, like noticing where you are needing other people to be a certain way for you to feel happy, peaceful, successful, especially in relationships, this can show up of like, I need my partner to do this, and then I can feel safe and secure or whatever. And there is some level of that that's very important in relationships. And there's another level that can be controlling and needing them to be away so you can manage your internal state. So that may be one aspect of this. Another aspect is then looking at what are the things in your control and to accept the things that you can't control and influence the things that you can control. Of, well, you can't control whether they do X, Y, or Z. That would be nice if they did it, but you can control that you have boundaries, and maybe you need to set a boundary in a relationship. And that's part of Virgo as well, is like containment, grounding, perspective. Hasta is what you grasp, what you hold on to, and what you open the hands to let go of. So it's exploring this week of what do you really want to allow in to your boundaries? What boundaries do you need to set? And what do you want to focus on controlling in your life? Which it's good to regularly come back to of like, are you taking care of your needs and what you really want in life? So for example, I notice I'm much more likely to be reactive if I haven't done my practices that day, or if I'm not taking care of the needs that I need, the sort of structure of my life, on top of finances and cleaning the house and organizing things, which is even stronger for me with all my Virgo rising energy. But for everyone, there's some level of this. We need some level of order in our lives. And if your life is more chaotic and disordered and you don't feel centered or grounded in yourself, and you're looking for that from somebody else, it's likely going to perpetuate this cycle of chaos and disorder. So good to always come back to, okay, what can I bring some more order and structure into my life that needs attention? So organizing your life, cleaning your space, things like this. Working with your hands in creative and healing ways is very good this week as well. This can be hands-on body work, it can be crafts, it can be drawing, writing, an instrument, gardening, using your hands to get into the dirt. It's very good Virgo energy. And any sort of health protocols, very good. Like Virgo is about health and wellness. So this may be illuminating where something has been in the shadow about your health and wellness. Again, a personal example is like it's very easy to eat a lot of sugar from fruits and honey. This is good sugar. This is like, what's the problem? But too much sugar, of course, is a problem for many functions of the body. Uh, it's an example of like illuminating something that to me, as I'm recording this today, is like I just really felt this need to like cut sugar at least for a day, like anything, any fruits, anything at all, and it's feeling really good for my stomach and my just energy. So that's an example of like the Hasta Virgo energy illuminating health issues. And for yourself, reflect on what could use attention in your health, what has been kind of hidden in the shadow that could use some attention this week to address. And then number 4 thing today, we'll talk about the auspicious activities in addition to some I already mentioned here, but finishing projects instead of starting new ones can be very fulfilling with all the Pisces energy. Cleaning, organizing, and simplifying. Journaling to process your emotions. Gentle movement like yoga or walking. Creative expression without feeling pressured on yourself. This is a go with the flow kind of creativity. And just time alone to hear your own thoughts more clearly this week. Very important. Again, more guidance on this will be inside of new moon alignment and inauspicious activities this week. Things you want to watch out for. Forcing big decisions about your future, not the best this week. It'll bring more clarity in mid-April. Overcommitting to major new projects. Might not be seeing fully clearly with Mercury debilitated. Reacting emotionally without pausing first. Again, this is like getting into the ocean. You want to watch the waves for a little bit before you get in so you don't get swept in by the waves and the current. So it's this kind of thing, emotionally pausing this week, and then you can kind of ride and flow with the waves of this week rather than trying to control them, rather than fighting them, rather than getting swept up in the emotional waves. Pause, step back. If you send an angry text, pause, delete it, come back in 5 minutes, come back in 30 minutes if you need to, and then resend the message. And see, you probably see that, cooler heads prevail. You could have some escapism tendencies this week with all the Pisces energy, which can tend towards that. So there could be some numbing behavior, which, again, there's a really powerful process I'll be sharing in New Moon Alignment. For those of you in there, I'll be sharing this with you. But basically, if you notice some numbing behavior, it's very important to just pause and explore and be curious about that. Be very curious about it. Trying to figure everything out mentally is again kind of strong Mercury energy this week with the full moon. And the mind is great. The mind's a very useful tool. We need that, but it's not everything. We also need our intuition. We also need sort of just embodiment, present. And the mind is a useful servant, but a terrible master, as Einstein said. But if you want to work with all this, check out New Moon Alignment. You can join the waitlist at quietmindastrology.com/new moon, where we do practices for this. And those of you in the program, I will now share those practices for you. So thank you for listening and look forward to sharing more with you next time on the Quiet Mind Astrology podcast.